Justin, that's pretty nice sunshine blown my way. Not sure it deserved it. Last week, Winston started us out on this series of Echelon, talking about how everything we do, everything about our life should be centered right around Jesus. He should be our priority. He should be the main thing in our life. If you missed last week, I hope you'll go back and you'll watch that. Go on YouTube and look up Eastside Online and you go back and find that sermon. And because here's the reality, everything from last week, tonight, this next Sunday, the weekend after, and all the weekends all the way through Hayes study break here are going to come back and just be kind of under that umbrella where Jesus is the center of our lives. Tonight or today we're going to continue our series in looking at one of those byproducts that come from a life that is dedicated to Jesus, where Jesus is the priority, where he is the main thing in us. And we're going to be looking at how do we step up our serve? What is that next level service for you in your life? Now, some of you that have been with us for several weeks and have watched online or have been here with us on site, or maybe scratching your head going, didn't we just talk about service? Yeah, we did. We talked about it about 4 weeks ago. Winston preached on it in that series of where that's what we're made for. See, God designed us, God wired us to be people who serve, people who give of ourselves in helping other people. Now, what my hope is that he said he kind of laid the foundation for us, and I want to piggyback on that, and I want to look at some practical ways we could take our service to that next level. But before we do that, I want to back up for a few minutes, and I want to focus on this idea of echelon. The original word from the French meant a rung on a ladder, and I brought a ladder out with me tonight to demonstrate something that I think we've all been guilty of, and I think we've been guilty, and in being guilty, it discourages us in our maturity, in our maturing in our faith, in our trying to become more and more like Jesus. See, the reality is we look at this and we say, this is where I want to be. This is the echelon. This is the top. I want to be on that upper part. And we're starting down here, but we want to skip from here. Can I make it? You give me $100 bill, wouldn't you, to see that disaster? But we try. You see, we want to skip step 1, step 2, and even step 3 and 4, getting there. You see, we don't go from the bottom to the top. Well, and I think that's just kind of a byproduct of our society. I mean, why else do we have a microwave? Anybody here remember having to boil a hot dog? You may not be on Social Security, but you're getting close, as Hayes says. I thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Man, throw a hot dog in that thing, boop, 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 hot. You didn't have to wait for the water to boil. And you didn't have to wait for this. And you didn't have to wait for that. Instapot. How many of you have an Instapot? Beautiful creation. What used to take all day in a crock pot, you can throw in there in 25 minutes, man. We're ready to grub. Bring it on. Drive-through windows. See, we want it now. We don't want the process. We don't have to take the time to get from where we start to where we want to be. We want to go from here to there right now. Kids do it. Kids bring home a video game, and if it takes them more than 2 days to figure it out and go from point A to point Z and it be completed, oh, I don't like that game. And they chuck it in the closet and they won't touch it. See, adults, we do that. Some of you are on the boat with me. We do that every year. Get on the bandwagon January 1. Yeah, baby, I'm going to lose weight. A couple of weeks, 3 weeks, a month, maybe 2, maybe even 6 months, we do well. Man, we hit a plateau. And you're like, is it worth it? And you walk into the workroom, and there's donuts, and there's candy, and you see Donnie Rourke eating everything, and he doesn't gain an ounce. And you're going, life ain't fair. I forget it. And pretty soon you're right back at step 1. And if you're like me, you probably lose a couple of rungs on top of that. So that's our idea. That's what we want. That's our desire. How do we get from where we want that to what God's desire is for our life? Anyone that's worked on a ladder on a regular basis knows how important it is to take each step or each rung at a time. Any of you ever missed a rung? Whoo! Life flashes before your eyes, especially you get to be my age. You don't bounce like you used to. Whole new world. Life just goes, one rung at a time. One rung at a time. We're going to look at that tonight. 1 Peter chapter 4, the Apostle Peter shared with the early church. He said, each one of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. The first area I want us to look at tonight in stepping up our serve, and again, I want to make these as practical as possible. I want to see, how do we step up our serve at work, in our workplace? And I can hear some of you grumbling now. Nope, no way, not going to happen, not going to do it. Work sucks the life out of me. There is no way I'm going to do any more than what's required of me. Is that really the attitude Jesus would have us take? Yeah, I understand sometimes work does stink. There's days that it's not fun. There's days that you may love your job. And there's days that you would just rather do something else. See, oftentimes we separate our lives into these categories. We have work, and we have home, and we have hobbies, and we have family time, and we have friends. And we decide either consciously or unconsciously, Jesus, you're welcome here, but you're not welcome here. A little gut check for you. A little gut check for you if you're thinking, wait a minute, what's he talking about? Gut check for you. Do you act differently at work than you do at church? Do you act differently when you're around your friends than you do at home? Have you consciously, Jesus, you're not welcome here. Jesus, you're not welcome there. You see, when we come back to what Winston talked about, when your life is all about Jesus, it comes out of you. It has to come out of you. It can't help but come out of you. It's just a byproduct of him being in you. You are so full that it can't help but do that. But you see so many of us, and I'm guilty. Don't think I'm standing up here going, I'm guilty as charged. There are times my life does not reflect that. There are times when I'm with friends, I say stuff I should not say. So please don't think I'm accused. I just want us to think. Think. How can we become better? How can we, as you walk in every weekend, every time you come in these doors, how can I conform my life more and more to the likeness of Christ? Colossians chapter 3 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for human masters. I'll never forget the time that my dad wrote that to me, sharing that verse. Papa T was my sounding board. He was one of those fellas that I could just tell him anything. I could gripe, I could rant, I could rave. I could just lay it on the line and tell him how I felt. I could tell him what I was struggling with, what I was frustrated with. And the beauty of it was that my dad was serving at the Scottsburg church, and he would oftentimes come down and make hospital calls, and he would stop by here at church on the way through, and we'd just get to talk for a little bit. And there was one of those times that I don't know what was going on. I can't remember what it was specifically, but something was driving me nuts here. Driving me absolutely nuts. I was so frustrated. I was frustrated with some decisions that had been made. I was frustrated that I thought I was being abused. Was I? Probably not. But you know how sometimes you get in your head that you're being taken advantage of? And it was one of those things, and I used to be able to get wound up. I mean, when I was younger, I could go from here to woohoo. We take the roof off this joint in a heartbeat. Not that I can't still do that, but you know, you get over the edge of 50, you got to start watching it for your blood pressure. So we started calming down just a little bit. But I was on one of those tears, man. I mean, I am lighting him up. And that was the beautiful part about my dad was I could do that, and I could just pour it out, and he would just sit, and he would just listen. And he would listen, and he would listen. And he'd shake his head, and he would listen. Now, the beautiful part was that my dad knew me, having raised me and the hard-headed kid that I was, and the very truth that he said, dude, you would argue with a signpost and go the wrong way. He was right. Did that many times in life. He knew rather than stopping right there and trying to share that wisdom with me, he would oftentimes just, he'd say, well, I need to be headed back. And he would go back to Scottsburg, or he would go back home. And about 2 or 3 or 4 days later, I'd get a letter in the mail. Handwritten note. Fatherly wisdom. Scripture that had helped him. And I will never forget that week that I got that letter. Dude, you're not doing it for men. You don't do this for men. You don't do this for men. You do this for God. And it changed my entire outlook on everything. Whether it was church work, whether it was housework, whether it was cutting grass, everything changed when my view changed. It's not about pleasing man. It's about what can I do to please my God and make him look good. See, that's the goal of any service. The service isn't for your glory. Service isn't for your honor. The 1 Peter 4 passage, you remember, did you hear that? It's to give God glory. It's to bring him honor. That's what it's all about. It's so that he gets the praise, so that he gets all of the sunshine. Now I want you to apply that verse. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. I want you to apply it to your serve at work. What might that look like? Well, some of you, it may be just that you show up on time. I'm going to be real honest with you. Some of you are going to be late for your own funeral. Just show up on time. Be 5 minutes early for the sake of the team. See what? Just try it. See how much pressure that might alleviate. Maybe it's that you put in the full hours that's expected. You ever been in a store and watched kids work to get out of work? I will never forget, it's been 4 or 5 years ago, I was in the Walmart and I was trying to find some paint or something. And I mean, these kids had their manager's little stroll down. They knew exactly where he was going to be, exactly what time and exactly when. And they were dodging from section to section to section to get out of work. And I'm thinking, really? That took more work and planning to figure that out than just do your job. Maybe it's just putting in full time that's expected. Maybe it means that you go the extra mile and you help where time allows, where others need the help. And I know that can get a little bit wiggy. I know people can get defensive about that, but is there something you can do that can help out and make life easier for somebody that can benefit the company for the good of the whole? Maybe it means stepping up to a whole new role. Maybe it's something where you have this innate within you that you want to be a leader and you're not able to lead, and there's a position to become, and you just step out and you say, I'm going to try that. Maybe that's what that is stepping up in your work service. I love my staff family. I want to brag on them for just a little bit. When we were getting ready to reopen the church, and for those first several weeks that we were open and everybody was starting to filter back, the church staff picked up a lot of the cleaning here at church. Some of us were assigned bathrooms, some of us were assigned in here, some of us vacuumed carpets, some of us wiped windows, some of us cleaned counters and disinfected counters. We did that for probably, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Not once did I ever hear anybody complain. Not once. Never heard anybody gripe, never heard anybody grumble, never heard anybody say, that's not my job. It's not on any of our job descriptions, unless you have that little clause that says other duties as assigned. So proud of my family. So proud of my church family, the staff family that just stepped up and said, we're going to do whatever it takes. Stepping up your service involves one rung at a time, climbing, striving, attempting to be the best possible employee we can be. Because again, it comes back to that we are shining God's light wherever we go. So what's that next step for you at work? I've heard the gears grinding. Some of you are already thinking it. What is it? What's it look like for me? I hope you just take some time. God, what could I do to shine your light at work? What can I be to shine your light at work? The second area I want to focus on is one of those areas that, man, I'm telling you, I struggle with this. I did something this is like a first for me. I had 2/3 of my sermon written yesterday. That never happens. I mean, I was beginning to wonder if the church was going to fall in on itself. I had all of what I've talked about so far written. I had what I'm going to finish with written. But I could not figure out what I wanted to do with this part. And it's like I know what I wanted to say, but I didn't know how to say it. So I went to our staff today and I started asking some of them. I said, what would it look like if you were to step up your serve in your family? And again, I can hear some of you going, what do you mean step up your serve in the family? It sucked the life out of me. I got more time, I got more energy, I can't do any more for them. How do you expect me to up that anymore? And that may be very true. But there's always something we can do to improve. Always something we can do to be better. See, I give everything for my family, we might say. But the truth is, oftentimes we expend so much energy at work or on our hobbies or with our friends or with just other things in life, and all that stuff needed. Please don't get me wrong. That stuff is needed. We've got to have those outlets in life, but when they come at the cost of our family, sometimes we expend so much energy on that we don't have time for the most important. And all they get are our leftovers. And while leftovers are okay occasionally, nobody wants or needs them every day. I know I was guilty of that early on in my marriage. And when my kids were real little, I was not the best husband and I was not the best dad. I've been very honest about it. I love my kids. I love me to heaven and earth for them when they were little. But I don't know, it just seemed like I had so many other things that were in the way, that I let get in the way of where they deserved more. So how can I shift gears and step up to serve my family? I want us to look at this passage in 1 Timothy 5. It says, if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn first of all to put the religion into practice by caring for their own family and by so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Now, what Timothy's really getting at here is more of a financial support that he's talking about in this passage, but I think the truth can apply as well to us providing more than just financially. I believe that it can mean that we pour ourselves out into our family, serving each other, serving the needs of everyone within it so that the family is able to succeed. Now, I want to focus on a couple of items that have stood out throughout my years of ministry. Things have stood out that when you're talking with families, it's like, I wish they would, or I wish they would, or I wish they would. And again, you go all night for this is a whole sermon series. Just this right here, serving your family. But I just want to highlight some things. Dads, or if you're not a dad yet, if you're the man of the house, I want to encourage you to step up your serve by spiritually leading your home. Be the example. Get over it. You're not going to be perfect. I know that. You know that. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. That sinful head that just resides within all, it's going to rear its ugly head. It's going to be ugly sometimes. Man up and just say, listen, I screwed up. I messed up. Don't let your ego or your pride get so big that you just can't go to your kids. I mean, I've done this I don't know how many times. Gotten down on my knees beside my kid's bed and listen, I blew it. Your dad absolutely blew it. You did not deserve that. I've done that for my wife. Do you see that? That shows them vulnerability. That shows them that, hey, I am not too big to be held accountable. It shows them that I'm willing to sacrifice for them because I love them. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for my family. Whether it's my kids or my wife or my brother or my mom or my in-laws. I remember my brother when he moved from Virginia to Frankfurt probably 10, 12 years ago. He calls me up on the phone and says, "Hey, big bro, what you doing?" "I don't know. What do you need?" "Well, I need help moving." I said, "You get me there and I'm on the way." And all the whole time he's like, "I can't believe it." And I said, "Dude, I would do anything for you. You tell me, I'm drop whatever, and I'm going." He lives in Virginia now. If I was to get a call right now, I'd be like, "Dude, you got probably 10 minutes. I'm on my way." That's just the way we should roll. It's the way we should be. Dads, men, pray with your family. Lead your family. All my life, I've had so many great examples, but as I was sitting and thinking about this today, 2 men popped out in my life that have just been they've taken it from here and gone to here. They went from, this to this upper echelon. One of those was my grandpa. My grandfather was a farmer, and he would go out and he would work in the fields all day, or he would work with cattle all day. He'd do fences, or he'd put up hay, or he was working in the garden, or whatever. He was always going daylight to dark. Did not stop except to eat. But as soon as dinner was finished, as soon as whatever chores needed to be done, if it was garden season, we were breaking beans or putting up corn or putting up tomatoes or whatever it was, as soon as the work was done for the day, without fail, he would go to his chair and he would reach over and he'd grab his Bible. It's the first thing he ever did. Every day. Every day. I was 19 years old when this other man was introduced into my life. I was studying for the ministry, and I was up in northwest Pennsylvania. I had the privilege to stay with a couple by the name of Chap and Catherine Russell. And to watch Chap lead his family spiritually. Chappie was in his 70s when I was there. And I remember every day I would come downstairs to eat breakfast. And he and Catherine, 70 years old, were on their knees in their den praying. And that spiritual leadership that man instilled in his family and exemplified for his family shows when you look at his family lineage. 2 of the most incredible preachers to come out. Most of his girls were preachers' wives. Men, step up. Step up and be the spiritual leader your families need. Now, moms or wives, I want to encourage you to save a little bit of that emotional energy for your hubby. Yeah, I know, it's easy to love the kids. They're cute. They're cuddly. We not so much. We're ornery. We can be ugly. We can be a pain in the hind end. But we need that too. Again, sometimes it seems like we get the leftovers. We get what's left after it's all poured out there. I tell you, the hardest thing for me, my wife and I were married 6 years before our daughter came into our lives. And you talking about a world being changed and turned upside down? Whoo! When you're their center and they're your center and now we got a whole new center. I was glad when she went away to college. Even better when she moved out and I got her mama back. Love it. Wives, save some energy for your husband. Kids, you thought you were going to get out of it? Not a chance. Kids, just do something. Seriously. Now, here I want to ask you, put 911 on speed dial because you're going to need it. You get up and help with the dishes and you're not asked. Dad may go, whoop, boom. Go clean your room and you're not asked. Mom may go, hoo, hoo, hoo. Just do something. I mean, just do something without having me to ask. Be grateful. Tell your parents how much you love them. Tell them how much you appreciate them. See, there's so much of that just, I don't know, we just let slip. Now, one of those things I found, I was reading Bob Russell's blog, 6-8 weeks ago, and he hit the nail. He said, if there's one good thing that's come out of this mess that we're dealing with right now, is that families are learning how to be a family again. You can't run, you can't go, you can't do, you can't fly, you can't go. More dads have been in the yards playing ball with their kids than I've seen in years. More couples have been walking around the neighborhood than I've seen in years. But now that life's kind of getting back to a little bit normal, I'm seeing that start to cease. We're going back into those old habits. Step up your serve for your family. What's that look like for you? The last area I want to look at and focus on is stepping up your serve in the church. Now, when I usually say stepping up your serve in the church, and most of you are thinking, oh, great, they're going to ask me to do something more. They're going to ask me to do something else. They're going to ask me to do more. I want you to look at this. 10, 12 years ago, there we go. 10, 12 years ago, I used to do involvement ministry around here, and I still have this folder. Haste, you be proud of me. I had to dig. I had to look hard. But I found this folder. This is 3 people, 3 individuals, and I blacked out their names so you can't see, but each one of them were involved in 8 different ministries in this church. That's not what I'm asking for. Okay, that's not what I'm asking for. They willingly did that. They wanted to do that. They were retired. They had the time. They had the capacity. They had the desire and the energy to do that. For some of you, stepping up your service is simply getting started. You haven't done anything. You're not doing anything in the church. And I'm going to put an unashamed plug. Get your phone out. Get your calendar out. Monday, September 14th is the next pathway night. We're going to do First Point, Haste, and Aquila. We're going to talk about what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a member of the church. And we're going to do Second Point that night. And Winston and Vicki are going to talk about what it means to serve. Give you some areas that you can serve, where you can get plugged in and start working here at church. For some of you, it may be that, hey, I am doing something, but, I just feel a call to up that a little bit. I want a little more responsibility, or I want a little more, just something that's, demands more of me. I've got more time. I want to do that. Maybe that is your next step. And maybe that next step is, you've served in areas and you just say, now it's time for me to really step up. God's put it on my heart to lead in some way. All kinds of ways you can lead around here. Community group or life groups, student life groups, elementary side, just all kinds of options. But here, let me tell you what the truth is. Most of the time, the biggest factor in keeping us from serving is ourselves. I have untold times people looked at me and said, I can't do anything. What do you mean you can't do anything? Well, I can't do anything. I can't do anything in the church. You telling me God's a liar? Because you tell me I can't do anything, that's what you're telling me. You're telling me God's a liar because God says I gift to everybody. When you go in that baptistry, you accept Christ, you're baptized. It says he gives you a gift. Not only do you have that gift, some of you have some natural abilities, just God-given abilities. Some of you can take something apart and put it back together. Sometimes you're just thinking out of the side of the box. A very dear friend of mine, and if I was to tell you his name, he'd kill me. Absolutely kill me. Did that this week. I mean, he found out one of the young men here in the church needed brakes on his car. And he looked and he goes, I know how. I got the tools. I got the time. I can make it happen. Outside the box. Had a need. It was served. It was taken care of. That's the beauty of the body. So when the body does what the body's supposed to do, it's everybody doing their part. And when everybody does their part, it just flows. It just goes. It does its thing. It works the way it's supposed to work. You ever had a broken arm, broken leg, gimp around? You know what I mean? That's what it is. When somebody doesn't do their part, it's like, oh, now we're dragging. When everybody does their part, when everybody chips in. And here's the beauty of it. The beauty for me is there are no small jobs. There are none. Don't look at me and say, well, I just work on the parking team. You understand you are the first face people see when they pull in? Don't tell me, well, I just serve on guest services. Do you know how many people come back Sunday after Sunday, guests that we have, simply because of your smiling face and a warm welcome? Don't tell me, well, I just take care of our kids. There's no greater joy than that. No greater honor than that in sharing Jesus with that next generation. See, there are no small gifts. There are no small jobs. There are no small tasks when we allow God to work in us. There was a preacher several years ago that challenged his congregation. He called it the Great Gamble, and it goes like this. He said, for 3 months, he said, I want you to carry that serving towel like Jesus did. It goes back to John chapter 13 where Jesus got up and he wrapped the towel around his waist and he washed the disciples' feet. He said, for 3 months, I want you to carry that service towel everywhere you go. Open doors for people. Choose the back seat of the car when you're going with a whole lot of friends. Take out the garbage even though it's not your job. Stack the chairs following a meeting. Take the arm of an elderly lady that's negotiating the stairs in the department store. Open your eyes. Keep your serving towel ready. And then monitor the condition of your heart. Ask yourself, am I gaining or am I losing? And then if you wish, try it the other way. Every chance you get, put yourself in the center. Be demanding. Ask the world to revolve around you. Push yourself to the front of the line. Disappear when it's time for the dirty work and the menial task. Bow low every morning in front of a full-length mirror. And then at the end of that 3 months, step back and monitor your heart. Are you becoming closer to God and people? Or are you more isolated? Is your life fuller or is it more empty? Are you fulfilled or are you frustrated? I think you know the answer without doing it. 1 Peter chapter 4 again. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things, God may be praised through Jesus. To him be the glory and power forever and ever. Father God, we just thank you for the opportunity. You don't need us. I mean, you created the world. You spoke the world into existence. You could do whatever, but God, you have chosen for us to be your hands and feet. You've chosen us to be your instruments, to go out into the world, to shine the light of your Son. And God, I just hope, and my prayer and my desire is that permeates every facet of our life. Work, home, church, hobbies, friends, everywhere. Everywhere, God, so you may be glorified. It's in your Son's precious name I pray.